So this is Toronto, Canada's New York City. And for a city this big, there's a lot of strange things in this city, including this place, a store where you can actually buy human remains. You can actually purchase a human skeleton. And we are gonna go check this out. I am with Adam Wickens, and we are going in for a tour of the SkullStore. All right, so this has been the owner here, and so now how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this for 10 years now.
10 years, and you have amassed like one of the most incredible collections here. This is the museum part of it, and the store's over there that we'll check out in a little bit. But 10 years, and you have collected stuff from all over the world.
Yep, I am the world's biggest oddity dealer. I'm the main supplier for Ripley's, museums all over the world. I literally travel the planet finding the craziest stuff, and then I somehow cram it all into this 12,000 square foot place downtown Toronto.
I love it. So behind you, we've got this cabinet.
Oh yeah.
What do we got in here?
So this is some of my favorite dinosaur material I've got. I've got a lot of cool dinosaur material. For one, these are real dinosaur eggs here. This is actually a early ceratopsian, Triceratops family egg, but it's turned into a geode.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that's incredibly rare. So these are found in Asia. It's illegal to get them out of the country now, but I bought old collections. And this was from the Hobberlin Museum. Another really cool piece. This is a trackway, or footprints, of a running baby dinosaur.
Look at that.
Yeah, from the Connecticut River Valley. And it actually probably had an injury because there's a tail drag. And dinosaurs held their tails out pretty rigid. So this was an injured infant, maybe even fleeing from danger or an attack.
Isn't that amazing that that fossil tells a story?
Yeah, I love this stuff. So this is the early man exhibit. These are actually some of the rarest artifacts on Earth down here. In fact, the word artifact starts with these. These are the first tools ever made in history. They're made by Homo habilis, just little sharpened rocks 2.2 million years ago.
Wow.
But this is literally, although simple as this is the invention of inventing. It is the first time we actually changed the world for our survival instead of our own physiology. So this set off the intelligence arm race, was this little hominid flaking rocks in Central Africa, back when the rainforests were turning to grassland, which eventually became the Sahara. So step one to conquering the earth and then the stars was this dude flaking this rock.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing.
Want to hold it?
Yeah, I do want to hold it. Look at this.
Yeah, that's the invention of inventing.
This is the first power tool. It even says Home Depot on it.
But the best stone tool I have, the coolest one, wasn't made by humans. This is a Neanderthal skinning and butchering axe from France. The most beautiful color stone I've ever seen on a tool, perfect flaking. But the most insane thing about it, it was a left-handed Neanderthal.
Oh, look at that.
And then as you look, it has finger grips. Yeah, it's perfect. It's got a smoothed handle. Yeah, this is the most expertly flaked tool. This would have been like a master tool maker 40,000 years ago. 40,000 years? Yeah. Jeez. And even the choice of stone, this is the most remarkably beautiful stone. Like this is the textbook definition of Neanderthal technology.
That's insane.
Yeah. These are real Neanderthal bones in stalagmites. This one I'll hold from here so I don't touch the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the second vertebrae in the spine and a tooth. There's another vertebrae there of a Neanderthal that had died in a cave, and the cave grew over the Neanderthal.
Whoa.
And where was this found? This one?
These ones were found also in France.
In France, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that is amazing.
Yeah, and this one's a hip bone with the stalagmite growing out of the hip, with the vertebrae just sitting there.
It's like your enclosure from the build-off.
That's right. That is amazingly cool. There is something cool and strange and awesome to see, like in every single cabinet in here.
Let's lay this one down.
See how I did that with a voiceover?
That was pretty good.
Yeah, I probably won't use it. Okay, so in this cabinet, we've got some human skulls that are just gnarly.
Oh yeah, I can crack that one open.
Yeah. I mean, I have lots of questions here.
Oh yeah.
So the first thing I see is syphilis inflicted European human skull. So this gray matter here that we see, that's syphilis.
Yep, that's syphilis eating through the bone. There's other spots inside the eye sockets as well. Advanced syphilis, the lesions will actually start tunneling through your skeleton as well.
How old is the skull?
The skull itself was probably from early 1900s based on the preparation and the whitening. Yeah.
And what's going on with these two skulls here?
So this one here is a human exhibiting dwarfism, but this skull has a lot of pathology or medical attributes going on. Not only does it have these non-cancerous tumors, these holes were drilled in during life. It's called trephination.
Wow.
So it was a medical treatment to relieve pressure on the brain, which back in the day was the cure for a lot of things, but actually cured almost nothing. But one remarkable thing is the person actually survived. You can tell because there's healing on the bone. The spongy tissue is already growing over with a protective layer. So this human survived with 3 holes drilled into their skull.
Yikes.
What a headache.
I know, right? He needs another snake like he needs a hole in the head. Thank you. All right, so what do we got down here?
Yeah, we've got a bit of everything from classic medical to these ones were from the Paris catacombs, part of an archaeological estate. This was an executed prisoner from the early 1900s, which used to be the #1 way to get your medical skeletons.
It was through executed prisoners.
Yep, usually murderers and the quote-unquote scum of the earth.
Well, look at those beady eyes. I mean, you can tell he was a man of no good.
Yep. And then we get into more of the ethnographic. So this is Haitian Voodoo used in rituals, and this is Benin, so African Voodoo.
Which is where I just was. Wow. That is insane. Okay, so that is the heart of a child.
Yeah, people come in all the time, tell me of the heart of a child, so I lure them to the cabinet and show it to them.
Wow.
Yeah, that came out of a medical museum in Belgium. Same with the preserved human eyeball and the brain tumors and a lot of our wet specimens here. So this is one of my favorite pieces. This is Justin's toe.
Justin.
And Justin even signed it. Yeah, so we heard online about this kid. He was 20 years old and he was run over by a motorcycle walking home and woke up. It was a hit and run, woke up in the hospital and they had to remove what was left of his leg. And he's like, I want my leg back. And the nurses are like, yeah, everybody wants to be complete again. That's completely natural. But he has, in the age of Facebook, he made a post, I want my leg back. And somebody tagged us at the SkullStore. And we're like, I bet we can make that happen. So we actually worked with legal teams and Health Canada and all of these different levels of government to have his leg released to our museum. We rendered it down to bone, and we actually gifted it to him for Christmas. We gave him his own leg back.
That's insane.
That's so cool.
But as a thanks, he donated his toe.
His toe. And signed it.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. All right, so what's the story with this guy right here?
Oh yeah, so these are elongated skulls. A lot of cultures practice cranial modification. Peru is very pronounced. So that one there is a cast. The rest of the ones in here are real. But if you go down a level, you can see a real one with the mummy shroud still on part of the skull.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they believed in their culture that the different shapes of your head would connect you differently to the gods. A fun fact is you can change the shape of a skull, but not the volume. The brain is the exact same volume, although it's a little distorted.
Right.
To fit around. And then some groups didn't intentionally modify their skulls. So some groups actually accidentally modified their skulls. So these are from the Maya people. You can see the skulls are very, very flat in the back.
Yeah.
So that was because they were working in the steppes, they were semi-migratory, so the mothers would strap the babies to their back so they could still do their gathering and all of their duties. But because the babies were strapped so tightly, it would actually flatten the skulls of the infants.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe this. Look at this thing. So this is one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen.
This is a real sacrificial altar from Haiti. This is a voodoo altar made to give your thanks to Baron Samedi and channel his spirit.
Wow. Look at this. And so how does this work?
So I'm not a practitioner, I'll put that out there, but this was released from Haiti under the condition that certain rituals would continue to be observed. Thankfully, no sacrifices.
Yeah.
But offerings are made to the Baron of rum. He always has to have rum and tobacco. But we found that people would come, and in the neighborhood, they actually give offerings to the Baron for protection and good health. So we had to put an offering bowl out because our cabinets were getting covered and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, so the Baron, among other things, I mean, he's the party god. That's why he's got to have the rum. But he is also the Loa, the god of death. But it doesn't necessarily mean he's like the Grim Reaper, he's out to get you. He's the one that controls the gateway to the underworld. So if you didn't want your relatives to die who are ill, you would basically bribe him not to open the door so they would stay in the world of the living. So although this is spooky, the intention isn't necessarily for it to be like a horror object.
Right.
But it does have some attributes that you wouldn't want to mess with, like the mirrors to reflect the other world and the little voodoo dolls hanging out here.
All right, and then we get to this cabinet, which has some, well, pretty interesting stuff in it.
Yeah, so this is some of my South Pacific culture cabinet. So we've got like an over-modeled human skull. There's a real human skull in there, but that wasn't a trophy. They wanted the spirit of their ancestor to come back in the community, so they would rebuild the face out of clay.
And rebuild this face over the skull.
Yeah, that's why they call it over-modeled. So the human skull is there. You can sort of see it peeking out in the back, and it actually has cassowary feathers to remake the hair.
Oh,
they would
wow.
use what they had, and it was river clay and cassowary feathers.
Wow, and then this guy over here?
So this is somebody who would have been an elder or high-level person from the Solomon Islands. So those discs are shells, and they're actually money. So burying somebody with their wealth would have been a real status symbol. I mean, for them, they didn't truly bury, they actually just put them on display around the community.
Wow.
And in between them is an Asmat human skull cracker. So this would have been to execute prisoners, and all kinds of nefarious things. You definitely wouldn't want to be on the receiving end, and it would have had a handle too, just wrapped on there. So it would have been this proper axe blade to get some good momentum.
So this is what you would feel in the back of your head, or on the top of your head,
Yeah.
and it would be the last thing that you feel.
Oh yeah. Well, you'd hope that was the last thing.
You're right? Yikes. And then down here we have a cannibalized human.
So this is the other end of the human skulls of the South Pacific. This is a war trophy. So you can see it's wrapped with vines. This would have actually hung in a home or outside of somebody's hut just to warn their enemies. It has been cooked. The skull weighs nothing. It is all charcoalized now.
Wow. And this guy was eaten.
This guy was eaten, yes. He definitely had a bad day.
I wonder how he tasted. All right, so real quick, you have all of these Holocaust things in here that kind of, well, just don't sit well with me, but you have Eva Braun's panties.
Yes, we do. So I have a Jewish background. It was important to me to be able to teach the Holocaust.
Absolutely.
But if I just had a Holocaust museum, how many people are going to walk through?
Right.
But if you follow the journey of human history, I'm going to lead you here, and I'm going to teach you what you need to know.
Absolutely.
So with Ava's panties there, she didn't think they were going to die in that bunker. She knew things were going well.
Yeah.
So she rounded up a bunch of hers and Adolf's personal effects, had them put in a trunk, and put in an inn along the highway to the American front. Because you sure as heck aren't going to the Russian front.
Right.
Yeah, so they never left the bunker. But all of the Nazi war criminals stripped off their stuff. Their addresses were all in databases. And they just fled to the local inns and said, oh, I'm a refugee, I lost my home.
Yeah.
So the OSS, the original CIA, was going to all of these inns and rounding up people when they found this trunk of Hitler and Ava's personal effects. It had Hitler's petticoats and all kinds of things, had Ava's monogrammed in silver, her makeup kits. We're on a tight budget, so I couldn't afford a beautiful silver makeup kit, but we got her panties, and I'd like to think every day I have that Hitler's turning in his grave in the underworld somewhere.
Well, you display his girlfriend or his now wife's panties in your museum. That there's a little bit of justice to that, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Up here too is crazy. So these are guest serving glasses from Hitler's Berghof, his mountain palace. The monogram AH is on there for Adolf Hitler.
Oh my God.
So he wouldn't have drank any of these personally. He had his own glasses to make sure no one was tampering, but these were for serving the most evil people in history. And I've got them bordered by labor and death camp boots, actually made in another Jewish labor camp.
Insane.
And when we first got those in, I mean, I'm not a big energy person, but it's like, holy crap. So me and my sister, we actually drank Manischewitz kosher wine out of there.
I love it.
Just to properly desecrate Hitler's memory.
Absolutely. Yes, and the only thing better is to do it during a Passover Seder.
That's true, yeah.
All right, and then in this cabinet, we've got some really big oddballs.
Yeah, so this is my kind of deformed and pathology cabinet, which is mainly kind of two-headed animals. I mean, we've got my two-faced goat here, born in Ontario. We did his taxidermy and his skeleton. But I've always been in the reptile trade. I love the reptile industry. So getting two-headed animals in that industry are great.
Actually, we love the reptile world.
It's true.
The reptile world rules. Yeah.
So this is the skin of a two-headed ball python.
Wow.
Which is amazing, yeah. So this was born here in southern Ontario, but we also use a process called diaphanization, so we could stain the bones and make the skin translucent, so you can see the skeleton and the skin of the same animal.
All right, so that is the museum part of it, but over here is the shop, and you can buy all sorts of weird and strange things in here, including a human skeleton. All right, so over here we have a human skeleton for sale for $4,475 Canadian, which is like $4.50 American.
Roughly.
Yeah, but this isn't a replica. This is an actual human skeleton. Where did this come from, and how is it legal to sell one?
So this is it could be a male, could be a female. I'm suspecting it's female. This is from India. And back in the day, when you wanted to go to school to be a doctor or a dentist, you basically had to own human remains. It was just part of the curriculum. You bought your medical textbook, and you bought your skull. You bought your whatever you needed for reference. So there's a ton of it out there. It's all legal. I mean, it's not for everybody. Some people don't feel morally right to own human remains, and we're totally cool with that.
Sure.
And we also want people to respect them too. We have a disclaimer on our website, like, this is not an oddity, this is not a quirky thing. Treat them with the respect that any human deserves, whether they're alive or otherwise.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but as it stands in North America, excluding 3 states, you can own, buy and sell human remains under the condition that you're not disturbing a gravesite and you're not trading or owning the remains of the natives of our continent, which we are very happily obliging.
Absolutely. So in this cabinet over here, we've got human teeth, we've got human brain, human skin, human vertebrae over here, but in this cabinet, we've got Haitian Voodoo skulls and other voodoo skulls. And where did all this come from?
So we buy from people all over the world. There's a lot of estates hitting the market. One of the advantages of the older generation finally passing or retiring and moving to Florida is, do you really want to take your voodoo skull to Florida when you retire? So we're buying a lot of collections now, a lot of estates of archaeologists back in the day when they could keep one for me, one for the museum. So a lot of this stuff is hitting the market for the first time ever publicly, and maybe even the last time, as museums like myself buy them up. So that's where we get a lot of the ethnographic stuff, like the Dyak skull with the adornments, or some of the old medical specimens, even from local universities here in Toronto.
Wow, this stuff is really cool.
Yeah, and it's also, these teeth make for a great thermometer. If they start chattering, you know you got to turn the heat up.
There you go. There you go. So Ben, this is an absolutely amazing place, and you know, when I researched this place, it just doesn't do justice from actually being here and seeing your collection. This is amazing. So how did you get into all this?
Well, I started off in the reptile trade, like most of us do.
Yep.
But you know what's easier to feed than a reptile? A dinosaur. So I kind of just branched into the extinct world as well, and turned it a lot easier to care for and a lot smaller enclosures.
This is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for giving us a tour.
Thank you for being here. You're always welcome.
Awesome. All right, guys, so that was one of the most amazing oddity shops and museums I have ever toured. If you are in the Toronto area or coming to Toronto, you have got to check this place out. It is truly amazing and truly worth an afternoon here. Such creepy, amazing, strange, weird, and amazing things to be found in there around every corner. So anyway, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and until the next strange adventure, embrace your strange and rattle on.